show up yet.
I need to see the screen too. Hi everybody. We are here for yet another one of ESRA's Facebook Live presentations on aspects of training and dog behavior for our foster homes. So thanks for joining us today, and thanks to ESRA for putting this on for everybody. I hope that you have read the article in the latest ESRA newsletter, Feathers and Curls, that was about leash skills. And there are some videos associated with that article that I hope you watched also, because that's kind of the foundation for what we're going to talk about today, which is leash training. It's not about the leash. So, you know, I can't give you everything that you need about leash skills today in this presentation. So what I hope to do is give you an overview, and also in our second part, we're going to actually do some hands-on work. So be ready to get your dog, your treats, and your leash for that second part. As always, we're going to have a couple of question and answer sessions. This presentation is going to be done in two sections today. The first section is going to be the intro and planning part, and then the second part is going to be some actual games you can play with your dog to get started on some really great leash skills for the both of you. So after that first section, we'll have a question and answer session, and we have a team here compiling your questions. So as questions come up during the presentation for you, put them in the comments. The team will grab them, and we will do our best to answer every single question that you have in those sections. And then after that final section, after you've gotten up and done some things with your dog a little bit, we'll have another question and answer session at the end of that. All right? So it's time to get started. Okay, so we're going to get started. So part one is where I just want to help you create a visual of what the possibilities are for you and your dog with leash work. And of course, as your leash skills develop, then every dog you come into contact with, every foster dog that you take care of, gets to develop even better leash skills. And every person you come into contact with, hopefully, learns what you learn. So, okay, what are the possibilities? So we'll start with a problem. One of the problems that I see is that humans put a lot of responsibility on dogs. If you pay attention to conversations, you'll hear people talk about, oh, look at that dog. He's really good on a leash. Oh, look at that dog. He needs some leash training. Well, that dog, he really needs some leash skills. Well, you learned in the 4th grade that when you point your finger, 3 fingers are pointed back at you. So I promise you that when you look at those dogs people are pointing at, if you follow the leash up to the human end, you're going to see that that's where the problems began, most likely. So humans, this is where leash skills start, right? In our very large brains that are capable of defining what we want, committing to it, and making a plan to get it done. And for dogs, leash skills are far from natural. They don't even probably make sense to dogs, but they have to be trained. So why is that? Why are leash skills even important? Well, we have laws. We have leash laws in most communities. At some point in their life, a dog is going to have to be leashed to go to the vet, to, heaven forbid, evacuate from one of these terrible things that's happening. And there's 4 reasons. One is safety, both physical safety and behavioral safety. Number 2 is convenience. And when we have leash skills, not just a leash, it's even more convenient. So make it easy on yourself. Why work so hard? Number 3 is fun. Leash skills make being at the end of a leash with a dog fun. Enjoy your dog's curiosity and learning. Have fun with it. And number 4 is you and your dog have more opportunities to go more places if you have good leash skills. So let's look at where we're starting with leash skills. What does your dog do when he sees a leash? You get a leash out, what does your dog do? hopefully he anticipates fun. So that's step one. This leash is a good thing, right? We hope. We're going to talk more about that. Does your dog use or lose self-control when he sees a leash? Now that can be a problem. Does your dog sit and help you get the leash on him? Or does he go crazy and you're like, how am I going to get this leash on? And most important of all, do you like what your dog does when you get a leash out? Because that's the bottom line. It's your dog. You get to make the rules. And if you like what is happening, then reinforce it. If you don't like it, let's change it. So apply this same thinking to your dog's collar, his harness, his Christmas sweater, anything that you want to put on him should be viewed by your dog with joy and be a cue for certain behaviors that help you get that thing on him. So the next question is, what does your dog do once the leash is hooked to his collar or harness? How does he behave then? Does he check in with you, or does he set his sights on the door? Is the door the key to his fun, or are you the gateway to the door and to the fun that's beyond? Does your dog use any self-control once he's on leash? And again, do you like what your dog does once the leash is on? And the really important thing, as I alluded to in the beginning, is what do you do once the leash is on the dog? So really think about this and really get in touch with this, because most people don't know what they do from one moment to the next. And that's the difference between someone who's going to have success at training their dog and someone who's not. Knowing what you're doing, being able to look at the dog's response, respond in a way to the dog that gets a response from the dog that you like. So it's a constant back and forth. And are you in control of what you're doing? And can you judge what you're doing based on what the dog's doing? It's super important. So just pay attention and learn that. So once the leash is on, that's not the end. That's only the beginning. We have the leash on and now the world is in front of us. What are we going to do with this? And one of my evaluation points that I always use with myself and with my students is, what would happen if I drop the leash? And I ask that of myself constantly. At any moment, what would happen if you drop the leash? So if your dog is next to you on a loose leash and sitting there and you drop the leash, probably you could just pick it up and then continue on your way. If your dog is pulling out in front of you, heading out, sniffing, doesn't even know you're there, you're just an anchor at the end of the leash, and you drop the leash, you might have just lost your dog. So don't leave it up to the leash to control the dog. Let's learn some ways that we can learn to have our dogs cooperate with us on a leash. Okay, so my proposal is going for a walk as a team with partnership with your dog. Two pals exploring the world together and having a good time. Safety for both of you as well as every person and non-human animal that you meet along the way. And remembering that every experience a dog has affects his next similar experience. And that's true of you too. So let's make a situation where you and your dog look forward to the next walk. So we're going to go ahead and move on to part 2, which is making our plan. So we got to have a plan. And the way we're going to make the plan is we have to define, you have to define what you want. Do I need to do anything different?
No.
Okay, sorry. So you have to define what you want. Because if you don't know what you want from leash walking with your dog, then how is your dog going to know? You have to define it. You have to commit to it so that you can practice and start making choices that feed into that visual that you've created of those possibilities of you and your dog on a walk. And then once you've committed to it, you have to make a plan for the actions that you'll take to get the skills that you need so your dog can get the skills he needs. So remember that more reinforcers equals more learning. The reinforcers that you have to use with leash work include, of course, treats, and moving forward to that next fun thing. So you've got a world of reinforcers out there if you use them. So pay attention to what behaviors you're reinforcing with that. So we need you to be able to keep a loose leash. You have to be able to do that. So, because if your dog's ever only known a tight leash, then that's how he's adjusted his behavior to walking. So your dog, it's like flying a kite. If you're flying a kite, you have to have a certain amount of tension on that string, because the second you get a little bit of flex in the string, you got to get the tension back to keep the kite up. And so somehow that's translated to dog walking for a lot of people, because it's natural. It is natural. If there's tightness in the leash, you can feel it. And the dog can too. So the dog's using that taut leash to guide him for his navigation. As long as he can, move on the end of that string, that's what he's using. He's not paying attention to his owner. He's just feeling the tension. And we do the same thing. So we have to learn a different way. Your dog has to learn what a loose leash feels like, so you can use that as a reinforcer for his good behavior. You have the treats, but he may not even know that this is a good thing. He'll learn it real quick because it does feel good. It feels a lot better than that tight leash. My arms are getting tired just doing this. So he has to learn that, and you have to teach him. So keeping a leash loose for you requires commitment and constant action, constant decision points. So you'll use your hands, your arms, your body movements. We talked about this a little bit in the Introducing Dogs presentation, where we talked about you have to keep the leash loose as the dogs move toward each other. So one of the things that you have to think about is, in the beginning, as the dog moves away from you, you have to go with him to keep that leash loose. And then if you need him to come back, then you've got to figure out some ways to get him to come back without pulling on the leash. And we're going to talk about that in the final section with the dogs. So you may have to step sideways toward the dog to keep it loose. You may have to step forward to him and get in front of him and get him back. If he is behind you looking at something, you may have to step back to keep the leash loose and then get him to you and start over with a loose leash, and using the tools that you've developed, like your voice, your body movements, your hands, and so forth, to keep the dog with you on a loose leash, right? Okay, so you got to develop keen observation skills, and you have to have awareness of what you're doing. And on top of that, you have to be able to predict what's about to happen. So if your dog is walking along, the leash is loose, he's next to you. I walk my dog on the left, so that's going to be my demonstration area. But you can walk your dog on the right. You should choose a side right now. But so if I'm walking with my dog and he's, over here, and then he starts moving ahead and I notice his head's a couple of feet in front of me, but the leash is still loose, what's about to happen? He's about to go to the end of the leash, and when he's at the end of the leash, I don't have that much control. I'm going to have a much better job of stopping the situation and resetting and getting it back together if I do it when his head is 2 feet in front of me. So what if I notice he's at my side, but he's looking over at something in the grass, he's turned his head, he's perked his ears up, he's kind of stiffened up. What can I predict is about to happen? He's about to head over there at the end of the leash. So I'm not going to wait till he gets to the end. I'm going to go ahead and step in there, tap him on the butt, hey buddy, and get his attention and bring him back. Let's start over in a safe place where he's not so interested in something else, right? It's really that simple as predicting what's about to happen. Because you're probably not going to predict that he's going to look at the rabbit and then just decide, oh, I'm not supposed to go over there, I'll just look at my mom. That's probably not what's going to happen. So we're going to work on having some ways to get him back. So that's where we're going today. Okay, you have to know your goal, which is the position that you and your dog need to be in most of the time. And you have to have some appropriate tools. You have to know what you're saying and doing in order to make your dog a partner in leash walking. And you have to notice your dog's responses and make some plans about what to do. Habit and routine are key here. it's not about verbal cues so much as it is about using ways to get your dog's attention. And certainly we have a couple of cues, but it's not about heel, go, sit, left, right. It's not about that. It's about having the leash as a cue. Once we hook that leash on, that should be a cue to us that there's certain things that we need to do, and it should be a cue to our dog that there are certain ways that he should be behaving. Now, of course, we let dogs sniff, but that comes later. Once we have some control and we've established how we're going to behave on leash, then we can have the freedom to allow our dogs to go off and sniff something and be able to get them back. So we have to teach the basics first. So think about how you want your leash walking to look, what position, which side you want your dog on so he's not a tripping hazard. And we're going to talk about how to give you more control over your dog, to get your dog to you without pulling, and to get out of a situation that you might need to get out of. So if you use these skills, all these skills work on a neighborhood walk, they work going to the vet or the groomer, and they work in the Home Depot. So you're developing opportunities for yourself and your dog. Yes, you might get away with a neighborhood walk around the block with your dog at the end of the leash, where you follow him on the same route that you go every day, and then he just goes home. As long as nothing bad happens, as long as no untoward event comes into play that you might need to get out of, because everybody's just blindly walking. Not that any of you would do that, but some people in the world would. And plus, that behavior is not going to work at the Home Depot. It doesn't work for me, for other people to do that at the Home Depot, heaven forbid. If I'm trying to keep my dog out of control and out of other people's space, I don't want to meet somebody on an aisle flying their dog like a kite. All right, that's the end of section 1, and we're going to see if we can answer some questions. And before we start again, I want you to think about getting your dog, getting your treat bag or a bowl of treats, having it out, and a leash. We're not going very far. All the stuff that we're going to do is going to be done right in this little area where I am. But we're going to have fun and play some games. So, but first, let's answer some questions.
2 questions so far. First one, do you have any tips for working with a leash averse or older dog?
Do I have any tips for working with a leash averse or older dog? Yes, I do. All the exercises that we're going to work on in the next section are set up as tiny pieces of behavior that all feed into great leash skills, and they're done as games with tons of treats, and they are great for training a puppy, training a dog who's never been on a leash, and we even have some things to work on to condition dogs who don't really already have some negative experiences with leashes. Although that's probably another layer of training, but one of the first things we're going to talk about is ways to condition a dog to putting the leash on and the harness and the collar and so forth. So we also have a video on our Achieving Forever channel that's about collar grab that will give you a little bit of insight too into that. So yes, we do.
Okay, second question, and this was about when you're out walking with the dog. How can you predict what your dog is about to do? If I could do that, I wouldn't need a leash, would I?
So how can you predict what your dog is about to do? Because if I could do that, I wouldn't need a leash, would I? Yeah, that's pretty philosophical. So my goal is always to be working toward having myself and my dog be such great partners and to have all the tools in place for walking together to the point where I don't need a leash. But I'm probably going to have a leash anyway for safety, because your leash, I consider a leash to be my final safety point. When every other thing has failed, when there's a squirrel and a rabid dog and a car careening in my direction, plus I've fallen down and broken my leg, and all those things have happened at once, that's when I need the leash to just yank the dog out of the picture. Until then, I'm going to be depending on all my other skills that don't have to do with the leash. And when I talk about predicting the dog's behavior, that's the basis of training. That's what we need observation skills for, because we can observe what the animal's doing. For instance, if you can see Al is lying down, intently looking for squirrels in the backyard right now. I think that's what he's doing. And I'm going to predict that if I went over and opened the door, he would blast out. So if I wanted to open the door and I didn't want him to go out, I would need to do some prerequisite things to change that trajectory of where the behavior is going. So in that first part I talked about, if your dog is next to you and you're walking and his behavior changes a little bit to the point where he's moved up a little bit ahead of you and he's just kind of steadily, as you're moving forward, he's going farther ahead, you can predict that he's going to keep moving farther ahead until the leash stops him, yes? That's pretty easy to predict. Probably he's not going to move forward several steps and then all of a sudden go, oh, I forgot, Mom doesn't like when I do that, let me go back. Maybe that would happen, but I'm going to predict it's not going to. And I'm going to say that it's going to be a lot easier to get in there, get up there, pivot in front of him, herd him back, get him back into position, reset, and start over, than to allow him to continue that behavior that's leading nowhere good. Same thing with a rabbit in the grass. If he's starting to move over there, he's perking his ears up. You can tell, because you did the dog reading course, that he's stiffening up, he's really interested, maybe even points at the rabbit. What's about to happen? Is he about to forget the rabbit and come back to your side? No, he's not. I'm going to predict he's heading that way, and I'm going to change that trajectory before he gets to the end of the leash. So, yes, maybe you don't need a leash. Probably you're going to have one on, but wouldn't it be great if you didn't need it for anything except backup?
One more follow up to the first one. Do you have tips on working with the dog? When she was asking about an older dog, what she really meant was working with a dog that for years has pulled on the leash, when the norm is for the dog to either pull on the leash or to go around the human. So do you have any tips?
Pull on the leash or go around the human?
Yeah, like behind her and going around to
Oh
get
yeah,
to
absolutely.
whatever.
Yes, and yes.
Repeat the question.
So the follow-up question to the first question about a dog that's averse to the leash, I kind of answered that wrong because I misunderstood, but what she really meant was a dog who has been pulling for years, and the behavior that the leash cues is going around behind people and going all over the place and pulling and so forth. Yes, again, yes. In our next section, we can start at the beginning with this dog and forget that he ever knew anything about a leash and retrain. Now, there are ways that we can help that process. A lot of times I like to change the equipment, and some of you are going, what? Equipment? Because I don't depend on equipment to do my work for me. I do not. I train off leash a lot, and I would probably train this dog off leash in the house and get the behaviors before I added equipment. However, depending on what he's been wearing, just a little bit of change in terms of if he's wearing a collar for all those years and pulling on the collar, I might put a harness on him. I'm not going to let him pull, and I'm not going to pull on him. That's not going to happen. But it just feels different. If you think about it, if you have a belt around your waist and you know something's hanging from your belt, that feels different from if you have something on your neck and something's hanging from there. It just feels a little different, and that could be a little bit of a change in the cue for the dog, just enough to help us get those new skills in place. So, I would do that. And I'm not averse to using a front clip harness. I am averse to using things that cause pain. But anyway, so we can talk about that more later if you have more questions. But yes, we will help him by stripping away all those behaviors and rebuilding from the start.
No more questions.
Okay, awesome. All right, so if you would like to have a dog with you and you'd like to have a leash and a treat bag full of treats, I also have a bowl of treats here because sometimes it's easier to grab them. We are going to actually do some exercises with your dogs, and I hope this works. If you don't have a dog with you, do it without your dog. Practice without your dog. It is so important, and that's why those videos are there. Practice without your dog. When you are, if I'm walking, this is how I walk. This is how wide I am. If my dog's on my left, this is how wide I am. So if I'm going to make a left turn, if I turn, I just crashed into my dog. It takes effort. If I just turn right, I just left my dog behind because he didn't know and he had to take a lot of steps to catch up. Try it. Try it. Practice with another person. So it's not just that. It's really, it's going through doors. You know, if you go through the door and crash your dog into the side of the door because you forgot he was there, these are things, errors that we can eliminate from our leash training by just practicing without the dog. How are you going to give the treats? How are you going to get them out? How are you going to hold the leash? A nice short leash that you can put over your wrist is great. You can hold the treats here. You can hand them to them. But you know what people do? If you use this hand and your dog's over here, it can work, but you got to turn all the way over and give them here at your leg. And what happens a lot of times is we get tired, we get fatigued, and we start feeding, you know, more and more in front, and pretty soon we're reaching out here to give the treat, and what's happening? The dog's leading us down the street. So you may want to switch to your other hand, which you can do, and feed your dog, and feed your dog. But either way, it takes practice. So practice without your dog, but if you have a dog and you want to put him on a leash and go with us, you can. So the first thing we want to look at is putting on our leash. Albert, can you come here and join me? Hey. No, really. Hop up, buddy. Yay. Okay, so he came over. So he gets a treat for coming over. And then, this is what you're looking for. Gets a treat for sitting. And then I can just reach down with one hand and hook his leash on. And then he gets a treat for that. Isn't that fun? Now, if your dog doesn't already know how to do that, this is more where you're going to start. So with some dogs, we might have to start by actually, first of all, you have to learn. You've got a handful of treats. You have to be able to roll one up into your fingers and deliver it, roll it up, and deliver it, roll it up, and deliver it. Come here, bud. So I can actually start by getting my dog's head in a position so that I can reach the ring on his collar by feeding him treats and rolling him up and giving him another one while I hook the leash on. And then I can do it again, have his head out of my way and his ear out of my way, and take the leash off. I also recommend you practice with both hands. Because what if you injure your right hand and you need to do it with your left? How fun would that be? Shh. Come here, bud. Come on, buddy. Come over here. You don't want to play? You don't want to play? Come over here. Hi. Sit. And then, of course, what we're going for is what I started with, which is I still have my treat ready. I put the dog's leash on, and I give him a treat. So this game is not about can I get the leash on. This game is about is my dog helping me put the leash on. So we play this as a separate game from going for a walk. So if your dog is, you know, putting his, and you saw Al stick his face right by my hand, and you know that's not really part of it. Sometimes he'll use his hands. So if your dog is doing all kinds of crazy stuff, then we're just gonna, okay, didn't like that, but I do like that. So I just stop. Oh, don't like that. I might just only put it on when he makes it easy. So define it in your mind and then put it into action with your dog, if that makes sense. So another one that we can play is with putting a collar on. Now again, do this a little bit when you're about to go for a walk, but if you do it separately from a walk, you're improving the process of getting the equipment on to go for a walk. Come here, buddy. So this exercise is a shaping exercise. We're going to actually shape the dog to put his head through the collar. And this is going to help you. You can do it with a harness too, and you should if your dog wears a harness. Most harnesses have a part that's sort of like a circle that you slip over their head. So have them do it. Set it up, gather all the stuff. Hey bud, come here. We're going to play a game. Yeah. So I'm going to put this out. I'm not pushing this toward the dog. I want him to put his head in. I'm also not luring his head in. I have the treats here, and I'm going to give them to him once he does it. Okay, you can do it that way. Yeah, good boy. Good boy. Notice I'm not moving the thing. He's like, put it on. So if I needed to put it on, I could do it now, but I'm not going to. We're going to play the game more. You're silly. You're silly. Yeah, that's really good. Okay. Here, can we get him here? Yeah, good job. Awesome. And if he just holds his head in there, for heaven's sake, just feed him treats. But then take it off, do it again. Come over here. Yes, sir. Nice job. Okay, so this is a really old collar that smells like a lot of dogs. So Al has used this collar before, but you can also start with a dog who doesn't want to put his head into that tiny collar. You can just make a loop out of a piece of cable or pipe cleaners or whatever. So it's less obtrusive because it's bigger. Come here, buddy. Come do this. And just train him. Oh, you didn't put your head through. There it is. And just train him to put his head through the hoop. Come over here so I can see you better. Nice. And it's almost like you're saying, no, you can't put it on. And wouldn't that be cool, that your dog wants to put it on so bad that you have to say, no, I won't let you, and then you can try again. Because remember, more reinforcers equals more learning. So the more you play this game, the better it's going to be when you put the actual equipment on your dog. All right, so our next exercise, come here, my dear. Oh, do we have a stress itch? Oh, I'm so stressed. So our next exercise is just to learn to maneuver yourself to heel position. So he was already sitting okay, so I just moved over to him, and then I'm going to feed him for being in that heel position because this food is now associated with his position. So I can also, if I want to face the camera, I can also maneuver the dog over to heel position by using, you see, I kind of dance around and get everything all set up. And then the rest of this exercise, we're not going to do it right now, but I would like you to set a timer for 30 seconds and see what you need to do to keep your dog sitting next to you for 30 seconds. It'll seem like a really long time the first time, but you'll also, if you speed up your rate of reinforcement, with some dogs, you'll have to. With a new dog, it's going to be like treat and treat and treat and treat the whole 30 seconds. Al's done this before, so he can sit here for a little bit. But it's excellent practice. My leash is loose, so he's feeling what it's like to have a leash. He can feel it. There's a little bit of weight hanging on his collar, so it's not like he doesn't know that the leash is there. He's just feeling it in a different way. And if it were hooked to a harness, it would be the same thing. So practice that. All right, so our next exercise is the one-step healing game. And this is super fun, and you will do tons toward teaching your dog to walk with you with this. So we're going to start over here. Come here, my dear. Yep, good job. Okay, so I have my loose leash because I want my dog to start feeling what that's like. So the one-step healing game is your dog gets 2 treats for every step you take. And what that looks like is, I'm gonna take one step with one foot, and as I take off, I'm gonna say, let's go, because that's our cue word. And you need something to tell him, because what if he's looking the other direction? You need to tell him, I'm gonna walk now, so he can go too. And as you take off, you give him a treat. As you take off with that one foot, and then as you bring the other foot up to meet that foot, and you stop, he gets another treat. So he gets a treat for taking off, a treat for stopping. Okay, so it's one step, two treats. So here we go. Ready, Al? Let's go. First step, treat for getting up, bring the other leg up, and he sits. Now, if your dog doesn't sit right now, that's okay. Give him a treat to just stop and stand there. You can get the sit later. But for Al, this is our criteria, because this is what we do. Doesn't matter what foot you use to start with. We'll try the other one. Hey, buddy. Let's go. Let's step one, treat, and step. Oh, look what I did. I messed up. Buddy sat, cricket, buddy sat. Okay, here we go. Let's do that again, because I messed up. All right, ready? Let's go. There you go. Good job. So if you practice this in the house, both with a loose leash and off leash, you will be developing leash skills like crazy, and your dog will get it. Because remember, more reinforcers equals more learning. Hey, bud. So notice I went over there and tapped him to get him to come back rather than pull him on the leash. Okay, so now we're going to get to the big stuff. Now we're going to talk about separating the door from the dog's view of what really is fun. It's not about the door. It's about me. So, come here, buddy. Yay, good job, dude. All right, so we're going to kind of do similar to one-step healing over to the door. But I'm going to change my mind, because I want my dog to know that wherever I go is the key. It's not about the door. I'm the gateway to fun. And I might go to the door and I might forget something. So ready? Let's go. Hey, good job. Good job. Oops, I forgot my keys. I gotta go back. I gotta go back. Yay! That's also the beginning of your emergency U-turn. So when you turn, by the way, if your dog is on your left, you turn away from the dog and help him turn. Notice how many steps he had to take to keep up. For other things, for obedience and rally and stuff like that, come over here. You may want to turn into your dog, but don't do it for your standard walking, because here's what happens if you turn into your dog. He didn't know you were doing that, and he didn't even get up, and now you're crashing into him. So that's actually, there's a video on the Mannerly Dogs Facebook page right now about pivoting in front of your dog to step between them in danger. And I actually want to, come here, buddy. I actually want to do that right now real quick. So if you haven't yet learned an emergency U-turn, and say there's danger ahead, danger equals, I don't know, loose dog or a turtle he wants to sniff, or some kind of dead animal, and you just, he's getting super excited, something overstimulating, and you just want to get him out of there. So rather than let him get ahead of you and pull him back, what we're going to do, because he doesn't know the emergency U-turn, is we're going to actually go, uh-oh, come here, buddy. We're going to actually say, oh, there's the thing, whatever it is, a dead possum. Oh, let's associate it with good things, and let's pivot between the dog and the thing, and then just kind of back him up and get him out of the picture. And now when you get to a safe distance, you can run away or go behind something or whatever you need to do to get out of that situation. So that's a good emergency technique. So back to the door thing. The next thing we can do with the door is we can come over here, heel to the door, and then open the door, and then start to go out, and then go, oops, I forgot my keys. Plus, there's a ferocious tiger outside, and we can't go right now. So when you get to where you can make a U-turn just outside the door, a little bit farther outside the door, then that's when you have control enough over the dog to get out to the sidewalk to go for a walk. If your dog just blasts out the door ahead of you, you've lost control as you went out the door, and it's going to take a lot to get it back. If you start out with control, it's way better. All right, more thing, and this is a super fun recall game that's really easy to do and doesn't confuse your dog by trying to combine it with a stay or anything. So if Al can get up and do this one more time. Leash off. So this is super fun because the dog gets 2 treats for this too. So the dog, so to get him away from me, I'm going to toss a treat over his head. He's going to go get it. And it's super slow. Albert! And then as soon as he finishes eating the treat, then I'm going to call him. He's going to get a treat for coming. So then I can toss a treat for him to go get. Albert! Good job. And by backing away from him, I actually get that speed up and get him really pushing to get back to me. So the decision point is super important because, thank you for that leash. I want to give him a chance to finish eating the treat and to look up and pause and be wondering what he should do next. And that's when I call, because I want him to be successful. So I'm not going to call him while he's still looking for the treat. I'm not going to call him while he's chewing the treat. I'm going to call him when he stops and goes, what should I do next? And I say, oh, I have an idea. Come here. So if you only call your dog when he's likely to come during the training phase, then he's going to learn a really great recall. So it's really helpful. Later we can train him to come in the midst of a distraction. Okay, so can you learn the routine so well that you do it every single time because it becomes a habit and second nature? Because you can't ask your dog to do your leash routine if you're not doing it. More reinforcers equals more learning. Behavior science is clear and well documented. Positive reinforcement is the most efficient and effective way to teach and for dogs to learn. You just have to do it well. So practice. And leash skills require commitment. You can't do it sometimes and expect the dog to do it all the time. Pay attention, take your focus off the leash and put it on your other skills that you learn separately. Minimize your errors so you don't have your dog make errors. Learn to love a loose leash. I always, when I'm at the shelter walking dogs and with my own dog, I am constantly jiggling the leash to remind myself how awesome it feels to walk with a dog who's choosing to walk with me on a loose leash. It's the best feeling in the world. All right, that's all I've got, and I am ready for your questions.
What can I do if I don't see another dog before my dog sees it and she pulls and won't listen to me no matter what crazy voice or other tricks I may do?
What can I do if I don't see another dog before my dog sees it and my dog starts pulling, carrying on, and acting crazy? So I'm sorry, but the answer to your question is in the beginning of your question. You need to see it first, because that's the predicting of behavior. You already know, because you just told everybody on Facebook, that when your dog sees another dog, there's a set of behaviors that is going to happen. So how are you going to prevent that? You can see the dog first and get out of the situation by pivoting in front of your dog, turning and going the other way, using that emergency U-turn that you practiced at home before you ever took your dog out on a walk, and using those other skills that you practiced inside the house to the point where your dog is so good at them that you are ready to go for a walk in the neighborhood. So when something like that happens, what I like to picture is, if I had my druthers, what I would have is a helicopter come over and send one of those claw things down and grab my dog and just suck him up to the helicopter and then fly over to another place and put him down. That would be ideal. That's the best way I could think of to get him out of that situation. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen. And so it's up to you to mimic that process as much as possible and get that dog out of the situation before she exhibits all that behavior. Because Richard Herrnstein in 1961 gave us the matching law, and the matching law told us that whatever behaviors organisms are practicing are the ones they're getting better at. And so the more your dog practices that behavior, the better she's getting at it, and the more it's gonna happen. So you gotta take that behavior out of the picture, and you gotta create other behavior. And these are just basic leash skills. We have more skills. On my website is an article about a game called Look at that I would suggest for a dog like this. I would do it separately from walking on a leash and teach her that skill. And you get really good at it, so you can start to play it when she sees a dog at a distance. But again, you gotta see the dog first, because you already know what's gonna happen. So the only way to prevent it is for you to develop your observation skills and a set of tools that can change the situation.
What about the pup who is great with leash walking inside, but has absolutely no interest in treats or food outside, just wants to run?
What about the pup who has really great leash skills inside, but outside doesn't have any interest in treats and only wants to run? So the question there is, how can you transition from inside to outside in a better way so that and I don't know if you really mean puppy, you're saying pup, but I suspect you're talking about a dog. But either way, you need to transition from the environment indoors to the environment outdoors in a way that you can reinforce the good behaviors that you want in every small transition until you're out on the sidewalk going for a walk. How do you do that? The door behavior is your first step. Can you go to the door and make a U-turn and walk away? Can you go out the door and make a U-turn? You can go outside. Excuse me while I let the dog out. So that's an excellent transition exercise. Can your dog get to the threshold and U-turn with you and come back in? If he can he go one step off the threshold and come back in? Start at the back door. If you normally go for walks out the front door, practice this at the back door so that you can build the behavior in a way that he can succeed. Because we're trying to help the dog succeed. We have to get the behavior we want so that we can reinforce it and we can build it into other environments. So you carefully kind of bungee yourself out down the driveway and back in, over to the neighbor's house and back when you can get to that. And that's how you build behavior. You train it. So in your question is the answer once again. Your dog can do it in the house. He can't do it out on a walk. Okay, can he do it at the door? Can he do it in the backyard? Can he do it off leash in the backyard? Can he do it on leash in the backyard? Can he go out the back gate and back in? So he's not ready.
We don't have any more questions right now.
Oh, okay. No more questions. Okay. Let me just close then by saying this is a lot. But the 6 exercises I gave you, the putting the collar, harness, and leash on, look at that as a game. The game is how your dog can earn treats. You define how he earns treats, and you use association and shaping to get that job done. And then when you need to put the leash on or the collar, then you've got some background for it. Did you chase that squirrel, buddy? Okay, maneuvering yourself and the dog into what you've defined as heel position. Just maneuvering the dog and maneuvering yourself and paying the dog with treats to associate that position with great stuff, with where all the good stuff happens, is fabulous. Get your dog to sit next to you for 30 seconds in heel position. Use a timer. Make it a game. How many treats does it take? And again, we're not trying to limit the number of treats. This is not what we're trying to do. We want to give more treats, okay? That's the stage we're at. The one-step heeling game. Can you heel all over the house that way? Can you get really good at it so that your dog gets really good at it? Can you heel all over the backyard? Can you heel down your porch and back? Back to the person whose dog doesn't want to do leash work outside. there's another transition piece to use. And the approaching the door and U-turning, going out the door and U-turning. The treat, toss, recall. It's super fun for dogs. And then when you need it out on a walk, you already have a foundation. So there's tons more. And I did mention the look at that game, the open bar technique. Those are in articles on my website, The Mannerly Dog. They're right there, free for you to read. So many more. But start with those basics and get them so good that you start to see your dog. You're walking around the house and you look down, oh, look, there's my dog in heel position and I was just going to get the laundry. It happens. And it's the best thing ever. So, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you all for joining. And we'll see you on Facebook.